October 2025. Thank you for everybody for being here. Just before we begin the meeting, might I just kind of start I will do the fire alarms, etc. in a minute, but just to say that last week a horrific attack took place at a synagogue on a holy day. And I'm sure that all your thoughts are with those affected. But just to emphasise that as councillors, it's our duty to support the values of tolerance, decency and respect that our residents expect. And it's never acceptable to preach hatred or practice violence against others. And I'm sure you will all agree that that is something that we hold dear to the tolerance and respect that is a part of being the democracy of this country. So thank you very much indeed. I just thought I would mention that at a very troubling time. Going on to the actual minute, there's no fire alarm set, so if a fire alarm does occur, then please leave the building and by the designated routes and meet across at the pub across the road. It was at the car park across the road. I'm just trying to make it a little more pleasant for you. Just to get on and make sure that when you are speaking, you speak directly into the microphone so that everybody can hear you, particularly those people that are watching online. The meeting starts with the agenda with apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Curtis and Councillor Pemberton, who Councillor Littlewood is substituting for.
And do we have any disclosures of interest? No disclosures of interest? Then we move on to the minutes. And this is to confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of September 2025, including the exempt minutes, which you have all read. So could I ask for Councillor Gist?
So just a point of clarification, Leader, just for accuracy, my husband's business is in Warwick District, not Stratford District.
So that's a matter of just making sure that that is correctly looked at. Thank you very much indeed. With that clarification, are we happy to confirm and sign the minutes, including the exempt minutes, which you've all read? Oh, do I need a proposer and a seconder for this? Who's going to propose? Councillor Gist and Councillor Gokart to second. And are you all in favour of accepting those minutes? All in favour? Thank you very much. Councillor Coucher.
Just a matter arising from that. Obviously, the exempt minute that we have is about a very important matter. Can we have a regular update in terms of progress on that matter going forward?
If we could just note that that is a request that is made to make sure that we keep up with that. Thank you very much. And then part A, matters to be referred to Council. The first one is in the Law and Government's portfolio, and it covers the scrutiny protocol, and this is in the portfolio of Councillor Gist. So would you like to update us and tell us a little bit more about this? Thanks.
Thank you, Leader. I gather that the Chair of OSC might wish to speak, because I gather that there wasn't enough time at OSC for this to be properly considered by the OSC. So I don't know if Councillor Crump wants to come in with your permission.
Councillor Crump.
Thank you, Councillor Junid, and thanks, Councillor Gist, as well. To be honest, this paper I didn't particularly have a real problem with, and I think it was confirming, writing down, putting a protocol in place to what we're actually doing in practice. However, some members of the committee expressed a bit of disquiet at the fact they hadn't had enough time to scrutinise it properly, and they felt other people should have looked at it. I felt with the portfolio holder, leader of the council, myself as chair, and other senior officers looking at it, and my group being made aware of it, I thought a reasonable attempt had been made to put this out in public. So I've got no real concerns about it, but as you can see from the wonderful minutes that Mr Allison produced for us, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommends that Cabinet defer its decision in relation to the adoption of the protocol in order to allow the OSC to consider it in more detail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much on that. And it just might be worth also considering that going forward, I understand that there has been government guidance outlined in November 23 that a scrutiny protocol will be quite an essential part of the transition to a new unitary council. So making sure that we get and understand what the role and responsibilities are is going to be quite a crucial part of that transition. So, Councillor Giss.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any concerns, but if members of the Open Scrutiny Committee want to satisfy themselves, that's absolutely fine with me. Could we just confirm that it will be just until go on the OSC agenda for the next meeting, so they can consider it then, so we don't delay further, and then it could come to the next Cabinet meeting?
And Councillor Kate Rolfe, I'll bring you in now before I bring in Councillor Crump.
Thank you. I think as well as there not being enough time, I think the members of the Overview and Scrutiny meeting would have liked to have had some input into the draft document before it actually came to ONS. And also, obviously, there wasn't enough time because most of us don't receive, well, in fact, most of us around that meeting last Friday morning did not receive our papers until half a day before the meeting. So, and there was a long discussion around that. But I think it's as members of scrutiny, we felt we needed to have an input into the draft document before it came. Thank you.
Can I just clarify, because I understand that the protocol is actually based on government guidance, LGA guidance, and also the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny, which is the common model that is used for all scrutiny protocols by councils across the country. Is that the case?
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that, in fact, it is the government guidance on which we have sought to draft the scrutiny protocol, and it makes it very clear that there is no detraction from the Constitution and how it's written in favour of the work, the essential work that the OSC group do.
And perhaps that is something, Councillor Crump, that you know, when it comes back to the scrutiny committee, that's something that can be made clear.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, I think we'll get it back to the scrutiny committee as soon as possible, again, to keep the delay to a minimum. Like I said, I've got no real problem with this and was support of it. The officers have done a lot of work on it, and we were going through other protocols and, like I say, local government studies, Centre for Excellence, etc. So I don't think there was any particular problem with it. But again, I will emphasise the role of scrutiny, effective scrutiny, and the fact that, you know, I think some members of the committee, we do need to be stronger in the way we look at the papers. Just going back to the comment that Councillor Rolfe made about the papers being received very just before the meeting. Again, I was quite ambivalent whether the meetings of scrutiny were on a Wednesday or a Friday, but at the time, the preferred day of the scrutiny committee was the Wednesday, because they wanted more time, and it gave officers more time to produce the interim report that you get from scrutiny committee and on the other information as well. But that is one of the downsides, because if you bring the meeting forward, there's less time for the papers to come, so you've got less times to look at them. So it's catch-22. Like I said, I'm pretty ambivalent whether it's on a Wednesday or a Friday. But again, we asked officers to tasked officers to look at the situation, about the pros and cons of meeting on a Wednesday or a Friday, and whether papers could be potentially couriered, I think was the word, to members of the scrutiny committee if there's been a delay due to the vagaries of the postal system. That covers that item.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are taking the decision today to defer this scrutiny protocol from the Cabinet today. We got a proposer for that, Councillor Gist? Seconder, Councillor Coles? Are we all in agreement with that? Thank you very much. Moving on to the next one, which is item 5, the notice of motion, the support for reinstating the Stratford southbound rail link, which is on pages 23 to 32 and comes under the portfolio of Councillor Coucher.
Thank you. This is, I think, a timely motion at this point in time. It was the policy of this council to protect this rail route up until 2012, but currently now we are obviously considering the South Warwickshire local plan. We know that one of our potential growth areas is south of Stratford at Long Marston, and we have to look at all transport possibilities in terms of how we might service that development. And obviously we are already formulating policy in relation to road links, and it makes perfect sense, I think, to also keep a rail option also alive as well. So it is recommended here that we do support in principle the reinstating of the Stratford southbound rail link. We are fully aware that this may have an impact on the Greenway, which is an extremely important facility, which is much used by residents in the district. And we would obviously not have the details yet of what any reinstatement would look like, but it would be very important that we retain the Greenway for all time going forward. This is not really a matter for consideration at the moment, because we're not considering the details of the scheme, we're just considering the principle of it, and I think the principle one is one which we should support. So we have a recommendation here, and that the 3 points for noting within the notice of motion be supported. The points 2, 3 and 4 within the notice of motion requesting support be agreed, with point 1 supported in principle, and that's very important, subject to further work in respect to the South Warwickshire local plan when matters will emerge. And that points 3 and 4 within the notice of motion requesting resolution be agreed, with point 2 supported in principle, subject to further work in respect to the South Warwickshire local plan, and point 1 supported in principle, subject to the findings of any further feasibility work. And I would make that recommendation.
And just to be clear, when we look at the South Warwickshire local plan, we'll be looking at all options, just because obviously there are costs, but also there would be need for any, if there was any other options undertaken, it would need government support as well. So it's in principle only until, because of we don't know quite where that support would come from. Councillor Passingham, do you want to come in at this stage?
Yeah. Well, obviously support the recommendations of this report. It's very welcome that the recognition that because of the proposed new settlements and the proposed increase in housing numbers, it makes the rail option a lot more viable. And it's important that, as the report says, that all options are looked at and thoroughly investigated for the South Warwickshire local plan, in that the inspector will require that. But for the rail, there's the previous Stantec report recommended that a further full business case study be made on the rail. The previous report was an outline strategic report, and a full business case would be needed because of the implications of all the proposed new settlements. I just wondered what preparations there are for a full business case being made to put to the South Warwickshire local plan.
Does any officers want to come in at this stage, or is it something that we can update at a later stage? because at the moment it's just in principle that we're making this thing. But it is worth mentioning that there have actually been 2 national reports, not specific to this one, but one was on the campaign for better transport, and the other one was Better Value Rail, which was carried out by the Department for Transport, Office of Rail and Road and Network Rail, looking at the overarching costs and benefits of big rail infrastructure projects and where the benefits would mostly occur. It is worth bearing in mind those bigger reports as well. And also, as part of any study, we also have to make sure that we are considering the needs of the people that use the Greenway currently for leisure way, and making sure that we are putting a case forward that benefits and costs are properly looked at. Councillor Littlewood, I think you wanted to come in at this stage, and then we can get some answers back from the officers and from Councillor Coucher afterwards.
Thank you, Leader. Before I go on to that, I'd like to express our thanks for your comments at the opening of this meeting, and from our side we endorse them thoroughly. There is no excuse for the actions that took place earlier on with anything to do with any group, sect, religion or otherwise. But coming to this point, whereas we accept that this is a very, very important study that needs to be done, it forms a very important strategic part of the South Warwickshire local plan and wider implications. We remain unconvinced that heavy rail is the best option here. At the end of the day, heavy rail certainly would get through transportation. It would probably put freight through. However, that's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at communication in from the outlying areas, particularly along Marsden Airfield area, to allow for housing development, which is critical at the moment too, as we all know. So, whereas we welcome the inclusion of this, we are sceptical about perhaps the heavy rail. A very light railway might be a better option, allowing for cross-rail, linking into the A46 perhaps as a means of giving ease of transportation into Stratford town itself. However, that I'm sure is what the study will look at. I think from the other point I would raise is the heavy rail option would be an extremely complicated negotiation. It's National Rail, it's a private railway, GWR, Gloucester Warwickshire Railway, as well as looking at the abolition of the Greenway, which is a very popular asset. So whereas we are very supportive of the work being done, we are sceptical. Thank you.
The Councillor Coucher first, and then I'll bring others in afterwards.
We've already had a study about this and about the options in relation to rail, which I think we have accepted, and I think that's made various recommendations. So I think that's already on the stocks. What I would say in relation to the feasibility of this, clearly if it was to be included within the South Warwickshire local plan, we need to know that it is capable of being implemented. Otherwise, it just won't be accepted by the inspector. So if this does emerge as a potential highway solution to our transportation problems, then clearly further work will be necessary. But I think we need to develop further the South Warwickshire local plan before we take things further.
And John Kerford, the Head of Development, would you like to add to your comments?
Thank you, Chair. Not really much to add other than say that, this is, excuse the pun, giving a clearer direction of travel in terms of transport south of Stratford. I'm also aware of the government's announcements re new towns and reference to Worcestershire Parkway. So I think that sort of Worcester Evesham, Stratford, Leamington corridor is an area we need to look at further. And yes, as Councillor Couch rightly said, as we progress the South Warwickshire local plan, then this work can feed into that. There's nothing, no further studies on the books specifically, but as I say, this is giving us a steer about how we might want to move that forward. So I think that's a helpful position to now have.
Councillor Passingham.
Two points. First of all, the Stantec report looked at 5 options, and it recommended that 2 of them be taken further forward. One was heavy rail, and the other was a tram train system, which would link the arc from Leamington to Worcester. But the advantage of a tram train system running for that whole distance is that there's going to be a lot of development at Worcester Parkway, at Throckmorton, and at Longmarston, Brearley, and Wootton. So there'll be an enormous population that we're moving in and will be able to access the tram train. The tram train would cost a lot less money than heavy rail or a South West Relief Road. It would be implemented a lot quicker because there's no need for any heavy engineering going through Stratford. So it's a very good option, and it should be investigated properly, we think. As far as the Greenway is concerned, I know how people are attached to it. It is a wide track bed. It was a Brunel gauge track for a start, but also there was a law passed on when rail was being investigated as to reinstate some of these the rails that were taken away by beaching sometime 50, 60 years ago, that compulsory purchase orders can be made alongside the track to reinstate anything that has happened subsequently in terms of building. And, I mean, I've used the Greenway over the years, and if you want to walk, there's a far better footpath that goes along the river, and it's far more scenic and beautiful than walking in a straight line and back. So I think there could be other options that would be far better than just sticking to the Greenway. But so that was the two points there. And can I carry on and ask another question after that, or
you're not finished. You've got more questions.
I've got one question. Yeah.
Otherwise, I can move on to the recommendation.
The question is, £250,000 was allocated to study a road relief around Stratford. Was this, I think I've heard implications that this was actually a study about travel in general. Will this include the rail option, and could some of this £250,000 be used for a £50,000 business study on the rail?
I'm not sure that is connected to the notice of motion that we've got here in front of us. We're asking for a feasibility study, but one of the things that I would like to say, as part of any feasibility study, is that local communities should be fully involved and consulted, because there certainly is a lot of... I know that track very, very, very well. We need to make sure that everybody is included and taken along on any decisions or any feasibility that is done. But we're on this particular notice motion. We've got a recommendation to the council that we support them in principle, because subject to the findings of any further feasibility study. So, Councillor Coucher, are you proposing that? Who wants to second that one? Councillor Coles? And are you all in favour of that recommendation? Thank you very much indeed. Now we move on to the progress update on the delivery of the South Warwickshire Economic Strategy 2023 to 28 and to consider the progress update. And this again falls under the portfolio of Councillor Coucher.
Chair, it was a significant development for this authority to re-establish an economic development function. And I think this report bears out the importance of having done that and also the progress to date. I thank officers for preparing this report and our new Economic Development Officer, who is now in charge of ensuring that we go forward and deliver accordingly. Although the economy in Stratford District remains buoyant, we do have issues and challenges relating to skills, labour supply in certain areas, also certain sectors that are potentially vulnerable, and we have particular issues in relation to tourism and hospitality, but also the difficulties within the automotive sector, particularly in relation to JLR, demonstrates that we need to remain on the front foot in relation to how we are working with our partners in the private sector who are principally driving forward the economy. So I welcome this report. I think it in detail highlights, I think, some of the successes that we've had over the last couple of years, particularly with regards to funds which have been provided to us by government, and our close working relationship with Warwickshire County Council in relation to that. I think the schedule that we have in terms of the priorities for action demonstrates there are a number of areas where we are not making as fast progress as we would hope. And certainly it'll be my intention of working with the Economic Development Officer to make sure that we are progressing the plan in total and reviewing it where we necessarily have to do so. But overall, I welcome this report. I think it's a good report. I think it demonstrates, I think, that Stratford District Council is alive to the economic conditions within the district, and we are doing all that we can to ensure that we support those who are generating wealth and prosperity and employment here.
Thank you very much indeed. I found it clear the key economic outcomes and developments objectives were clear in the strategy. And I liked the fact that certain areas were being developed as a priority, including research, digital visitor economy, and low carbon economic priority as well given. The one thing that did bring out was that there is a skills imbalance that we need to address, and that is part of the assessment, and also making sure that as part of the strategy we link in with the local plan as well to make sure that we are providing low cost affordable housing for those people that will work in the area. So thank you very much indeed for that. If there's no other comments, then can I put forward the recommendations? Councillor Coucher, you are proposing?
Yes. Do you wish me? Sorry, Leader. Do you wish me to read them out, or
no?
Can we take them as read?
They're taking them as read. Yeah. I'll bring in Councillor Littlewood in a minute, but you've proposed them. I'm happy to second it. Councillor Littlewood.
Thank you. Yes, we agree with Councillor Coucher's opening remarks of welcoming him in the report. It's good to see that something has gone through with such detail. However, I do notice that the timeframes seem to have slipped slightly, and whereas we would encourage work to continue on this very, very important part, which goes right across all that we do really, especially the South Warwickshire Local Plan, that we make sure that there are sufficient resources available to maintain the timescales that have been set out. It 2028 isn't very far away. That is the end point of the objectives that have been listed. So urge resource to be made available, even if maybe if it's determined that additional resource is required, then perhaps on a fixed-term contract basis. Thank you.
Certainly having the new officer in place has been extremely helpful. And there is to be an establishment of an enterprise planning advisory group chaired by the head of development that will help oversee this, and that is going to be quite crucial to make sure that it is delivered on time and to meet the actions laid out by the strategy. So that is welcome. Thank you. It's been proposed and seconded. Are you all in favour of that, the recommendations as read on page 33? Okay, agreed? Happy with that? And then the next item is again, it's not on the agenda, it's part of the same agenda item, but it's the report on the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So it just again, as part of this economic strategy that I note, for example, and it's an information sheet basically, which is just a note that 119 businesses were supported. So that is an information sheet backing up the economic strategy recommendation that we've just passed. Okay, next agenda item is the options for boosting the supply of the housing land. And again, this comes under the portfolio of Councillor Coucher. Councillor Coucher.
This is a very, very important report for us to consider today. We traditionally here have always had a very robust 5-year housing land supply, but things changed markedly with the National Planning Policy Guidance that was reviewed at the very end of 2024. I think we still felt that we were comfortable because we have overbuilt in this district for a number of years, and we had a bank of houses that we had built over and above government requirements, and we believed that we could utilise those in our supply going forward. Unfortunately, due to ministerial edict, that was removed from us, and all of a sudden we were plunged into a rather different situation. At the same time, our standard housing numbers also have been very significantly increased by government unilaterally, without any time for us to respond to that. So the district is faced very similarly to about 50% of all districts in the country, with a complete change in government policy, and which has put us in a situation where it is difficult for us to immediately respond. However, we have to respond to this and ensure that we can re-establish our 5-year housing land supply. We cannot go into a public inquiry in relation to the South Warwickshire local plan with a insufficient 5-year housing land supply. So we have got to work very, very, very quickly to re-establish that position. There are in the report a number of areas that we can work on to improve our position. We clearly have a number of allocations within NDPs. We have some within the SAP. And also we can re-establish particularly applications where we may have taken a decision which we don't want to now to continue to support, or indeed some of the sites which I think we thought and still do think gives us a 5-year housing land supply, but actually an inspector at inquiry in the summer ruled that we cannot count those. So we are obviously going to re-examine those. So there is quite a lot of hard work here to be done. If we do not come up with a 5-year housing land supply, then we are enormously vulnerable at appeal. And what we do know is that when we get applications granted on appeal, we do not get the infrastructure that we desperately need to support our housing. We already have got very, very significant and important infrastructure deficits in this county, be it road transport, be it flooding, be it sewage disposal, and frankly, just getting applications determined by an inspector who will not consider any of those matters is really, really very worrying indeed. So we have got to get onto the front foot in relation to this, and we have some, I think, clear proposals here in terms of how we will do that. And you have quite a clear recommendation. In addition to that recommendation is the setting up of a small and highly focused advisory group, which I would chair, which will ensure that we keep up to date with this, and that we actually are able to advise our planning committee and indeed our South Warwickshire local plan working groups as well in terms of where we are going. So the recommendation that we have before us today is that the potential significant implications of being unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply be noted, and I have to say acted on, that any possible action plan measures which the Cabinet do not wish to pursue further at this stage be identified. Now, all of those are outlined on paragraph 331 here. I think all of them are acceptable, although I do have some very serious reservations about AP 12 at the top of page 99, which is about flexing our arrangements in relation to 106 agreements. Because if that means that we do not get the infrastructure or indeed the affordable housing that we desperately need, then that would be a great concern to us. And although we might note that that is still there, I would see that very, very much as very much a last resort in terms of where we would go in relation to that. And that the final recommendation is that the Head of Development, in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning and economic development, be delegated to pursue work in relation to the other possible action plan measures, and that is where the advisory committee would come on board. Oh, sorry. Okay. So yes, that does outline the advisory. Member advisory group reporting to the Cabinet be established by the leader of the Council to assist with the delivery and monitoring of the action plan, and that further report on the progress to re-establishing a 5-year housing land supply be received by the Cabinet by March 2026. But if we can do it before then, that would be even better.
I've had indication from Councillor Rock that he would like to speak, and while he's coming to the table and to address the Cabinet, and I think you would just have 3 minutes to be able to raise the question you want to. On 1.10.12, I did look at the Cornwall Council interim policy position statement. I thought that was extremely clear, and it's something that we can have a look at to assist our decision making. And then I also noted recently that there had been 2 further appeals elsewhere in the country, and it does raise concerns with me on some of these appeals because, according to the TCPA, it is putting at risk areas that could be, areas of flood risk. I know that as a representative of a town that has flooded at least twice in the past, in recent times, that worries me as well. Councillor Rock, would you like to come and start your 3 minutes?
Thank you, Leader. First of all, just in case anybody's any doubt, I'm the joint chair of the South Warwickshire Local Plan Advisory Group, which I thank George, Councillor Couch attends us officially as an observer, and I also thank the leader for attending occasionally to see how that's going. Obviously, that's for both Warwick and Stratford districts, but when that group has been set up and you talk about how that's going to work, I think if I could possibly be involved in discussions about that and terms of reference and so on, because we're looking at the terms of reference for that. I think that would be useful to. There are some clearly some parallels and differences there. And my questions are to do with born out of that experience. Before I talk about that, though, but on item 7, I welcome this report, and I think this district faces some challenges. We are, so I think a good start is made on that. But a couple of questions. Firstly, specific one on page 96. Will the Cabinet rule out the conversion of the Wood Street car park in Southam for 8 houses? I know this has been suggested because of the MPP encouragement to consider car parks, but the continued viability of Southam as a market town serving its rural hinterland, much of which is in my ward, with poor or non-existent public transport, would be fatally damaged by such a move. Secondly, on the tables, as far as I can see, the desktop study on page 93 uses the SAP as a starting point. The latest draft of that might have been dated 2022, but that was based on an earlier version going back on 2019 probably, but early before that. I want to avoid specific examples, but there are cases in and around settlements in open countryside as well that have been put forward, and since then, and also been looked at in the SAP through an objective assessment involving the Hedner, which have I brought the map? Yeah, there's the map. And through the Hedner assessment, they've been assessed, and they may be better sites that come forward. So, better efficiencies might be realised through the emergence of those sites. So could some sequential tests be applied? And I've talked to Graham sitting behind us there. For these emerged sites might be less harmful than those being considered. So perhaps we could look at that.
Okay.
And also,
bring your
just
comments
come
to a
out,
cover.
the woodwork in the last few days is the question of sewage. And I've certainly talked to the head of development about getting a better engagement with Severn Trent in case the timescale of delivery could be affected by we haven't got a sewage infrastructure.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed.
So I've used me 3 minutes on that.
John Careford, who's Head of Development, would you like to come back and make some answer to the comments that have been made by Councillor Rock?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I appreciate the comments, Councillor Rock, and what you've got in the report and the tables are, it's just a high-level initial desktop assessment, and we're not saying that these sites are the ones that need to come forward. What it was an attempt to do is to show the scale of the task in front of us, and by exploring different sources of supply, what it demonstrates is that we've still got a massive task in front of us. And I want members to be under no illusion. Fundamentally, as a district council, we need to grant lots and lots more planning consents for residential developments. And I know that's not really popular, but that is the reality we're in. We need to really ramp up the number of consents we're granting. I wouldn't want Cabinet to sort of take out specific sites from the tables at this stage. Simply say that they are all being looked at, and if they're not suitable, if they've got more suitable alternative uses, then they wouldn't come forward in that sense. So, as I say, it was really an indicative approach to just highlight where supply might come from, rather than saying that supply would come from these particular sources. If I may, Chair, just to move on to a couple of other points. I think just in respect of the urban capacity study itself and the proposed measure AP6, we also need to make sure there's no double counting in some of these figures, and sites may be allocated, and also urban capacity as well. So there's a lot further work that still needs to be done as we sort of bring these sites forward. Councillor Coucher has raised concern with measure AP12, which is understandable. I just also want to flag up measure AP7, which is about empty homes, and I think the limited supply in reality that will bring in, whether cabinet members you want to leave it in for further consideration, or my recommendation would be, I think, to perhaps take it out, because I think the amount of resources it will take to get any meaningful supply could be better spent elsewhere to remedy the situation. So yeah, you've got a total of 15 measures there, but I think they're the two that I'd just draw your attention to. The other thing I'd just like to mention, Chair, if I may, just a graph 1 on page 104. So that's just the income from residential major applications. That's not the full departmental income there. I know we've got colleagues in the room as well, if members did have any detailed questions. But say this is a high-level report that's trying to demonstrate that the tools that we have, and they are relatively limited, to try and rectify this situation, but fundamentally we do need to grant additional consents, and I think the member advisory group to oversee this work is really helpful, and it keeps at the forefront of members' minds. Thank you.
Councillor Coucher, I take your point, Councillor Rock, the importance of making sure that our high streets and towns remain viable. As somebody that lives in a town that also relies on the car park, I do take your point seriously. But Councillor Coucher.
Yeah, just picking up on that, car parks are essential infrastructure, and I think essential infrastructure is going to be one of our determining factors in terms of how we can bring forward sites. So certainly we will be looking in terms of priorities those sites that will assist our infrastructure and not degrade it. So I think that point is well made. At the moment, I think, as John Kerford has said, we have everything on the table, but I'm sure this will be refined over time, and certain of the sites within the various tables are already on amber or on red, demonstrating that there are some very, very real concerns. I noticed that the site that Councillor Rock is relating to is on amber, so already we're flagging up that there are issues there in relation to that site. I think in relation to empty homes, the only benefit in doing any further work on empty homes is where we could work with our town and parish councils, who perhaps have got a more detailed knowledge of what is empty in their particular area. And also I'm aware from my own point of view in Wellesbourne we have at least a couple of orbit houses that appear to be empty for a very long period of time for reasons that I'm not quite sure. So there may be some marginal effect of that, but that's certainly not going to be the major driver that we'll need in terms of re-establishing our housing land supply.
I've got Councillor Coles, and then I've got Councillor Littlewood, and then Councillor Crump.
Thank you.
Oh, and Councillor Adams. My apologies, I didn't look around that corner.
You. I just wanted to reiterate that I completely agree to treat AP12 with some caution. I mean, it is not to be ruled out, but it is also be treated as very much a last resort when we're looking at possibilities. And also just to say that I certainly take on board what you've said about housing associations, empty homes, and certainly we will contact them to start a dialogue about what can be done or where we can improve that.
Councillor Littlewood.
Thank you. I think all groups here recognise the importance of taking very, very proactive action to recover the 5-year housing land supply situation as soon as practical. As you're aware, the Conservative leader contacted Councillor Coucher on the same day as the Borden Hill inquiry, and made several suggestions which we're very pleased to see that have been taken up in this report. We're very supportive of the report, which has been done in good time and with expediency. During the Councillor Couch's introduction to this report, he mentioned the issues of infrastructure being a problem. One of the areas for a more rapid acquisition of sites is to look at the reserve sites in rural settlements. It isn't. I don't believe of any coincidence that the government, central government, removed the financial support and granting for neighbourhood development plans at the same time as introducing the changes to the MPPF. And I urge, therefore, that this administration support that situation, because along with the lack of being able to provide infrastructure to developments will be the lack of the ability of planning this council to control the type of housing that's going into rural settlements. We have seen the developers naturally want to put in 5-bedroom houses. Rural settlements want 2, 3, maybe even 1-bedroom houses. That's what's needed. And at the end of the day, there may be at the root of central government's, this government's desire to increase housing. It's the correct housing, and it is the housing that is needed locally. So I urge that we do everything we possibly can to support that situation. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Crump and then Councillor Adams and Councillor Passingham.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I'm going to say. I'm glad Councillor Rock touched on about Wood Street car park in Southam. It's funny enough, we discussed it as part of scrutiny as well on Wednesday when the bid and Shakespeare's England came in. We spoke about that Southam Town Centre was bucking the trend in terms of only having one vacant retail property, and that was under offer. And it was all a package of programmes and would be supported by district and county officers in promoting the town, and are doing a really good job at the moment. And I do think that the removal of the free car park, which attracts residents from the hinterland, as Councillor Rock said, would be a major faux pas. So again, I support on that. Just going back to the 5-year housing land supply, we've done a pretty comprehensive report from Wednesday's meeting, and the officers were grilled, probably done to a turn the amount of times we spoke to them. But yeah, thank you for their fulsome answers. And when the officer said a bit of a nerd, bit of an anorak, but I was impressed by his knowledge, so I took that as a compliment rather than a criticism. So thank you for that, Graham. Yeah, there's a couple of areas really I need to look at. I think your Councillor Couch is right. Planning by appeal doesn't work. One, there's cost of appeals, and you're quite right saying that we don't get the infrastructure. I think we do need to make sure that planning permissions are built out promptly. So if we can, as part of the members' advisory group, look at that, and also find some way of lobbying government to get them to put some weight behind it, because it's no use giving out 1.5 million planning applications, permissions, and then it takes them 10 years to build, because that won't do our 5-year housing and land supply. So I think that needs to be emphasised. A couple of points around about resource implications. If we do need to progress as many applications as possible, we do need potentially more staff. And with 50 to 60% of the local authorities finding themselves in the same position as that, we might be all trying to swim in the same pool to get resources. So again, I'm concerned about staffing and making sure we have enough staff to meet demand, because we're putting more and more demands on officers at the moment. 2 more points. One point is regarding I think, again, we need to highlight that we need to support our towns and parish councils with their neighbourhood development plans and the implications of this change. So again, it would be good to see how that's going to happen. Again, I'm sure the advisory group will be able to help, but I know, as the councillor said, the towns and parishes have that local intelligence where they can find areas, they identify houses that have been empty for a long while, whether they be private or Orbits or other registered social landlords, not exclusively Orbits. So I think that is an important point we need to take into account. And my final point relates to the member advisory group. Several points and requests here. Firstly, if the members advisory group could report regularly to oversee. In the same way, we have an update on local government reorganisation. So that would be helpful. Secondly, the terms of reference, it will again would be good for scrutiny to scrutinise what the terms of reference would be. And thirdly, I'm sure, like I say, Councillor mentioned the advisory group advising planning committee. Again, some just explanation around that. I'm sure you didn't mean influence their decision, but I assume you meant giving pertinent information. So if you could just give me some feedback on that, Councillor, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you. A few of the points I was going to raise have been mentioned already, but as a member representing Southern, it would be remiss of me not to respond to the point on Wood Street car park. And I think it's fair to say that although former planning chair, you can't preempt any applications, we have always, as an administration, strove to support and enshrine sort of amenity and infrastructure in our development. And I see that we have to make sure that we don't lose amenity, particularly stuff that the ones that have been very well used and serve our towns. So that has to go in as a priority when considering any new development. I would say as well, I particularly welcome the comments on supporting our town and parish councils. That's something that we need to consider as they'll be on the front line of it. I think broadly speaking, we need to be very open and honest with our residents as part of that communication strategy, because they'll be the ones who see and effectively have to deal with the consequences of this. And I think I welcome the unity across our political groups in recognising that the cause of this has come from central government and that we are responding in the best way we can for our residents. And so it's just making sure that is well communicated to our residents as best as possible to set expectations, but also to demonstrate that we are across the board working proactively together.
Councillor Passingham, and then I'll come back to Councillor Coucher.
Yeah, thank you. Shipston has 7 applications being processed at the moment, amounting to over 1,700 houses. There's one other piece of land that was identified in the South Warwickshire local plan that hasn't had an application in on it, but that would probably take the number to over 2,000. We've been arguing that these are all premature applications because of the emerging South Warwickshire local plan, but I notice in the report on paragraph 1.10.7, it says that prematurity will seldom be justified, and that the development concerned would granting permission for the development concerned would prejudice the outcome of plan making. But we have to prove that that it would any development would prejudice the outcome of plan making. I just wondered if we can have any opinion on what would prejudice the outcome of plan making.
Councillor Coucher, and then if you can't answer that, we'll come to the John Kevford, Head of Development, and might be able to clarify that.
I think it's important that all members are aware that we will not be able to wait until the South Warwickshire local plan is approved before we actually allocate any further housing in this district. So I think up until now we've been, I think, very careful to try and not differentiate between sites in any way to prejudice the preparation of that plan. That's one of the reasons why we're obviously looking at what is already in the pipe, what already potentially is in the pipeline in relation to existing policies that have taken place. But that's insufficient. So we are going to have to grant some additional planning consents within the district, and that is where the advisory committee is going to come on board in terms of how we decide to prioritise those. That is going to, the work we haven't done on that yet. My own personal view is infrastructure is going to deliver that. So sites that can deliver infrastructure will be helpful. I think also the point that Councillor Littlewood is making in relation to size and type of housing is also important, about how do we address the needs of this district rather than just the needs of the development industry per se. I know I'm straying into areas that potentially as a planning authority we may have no control, but I think that will be crucial from our point of view. We need, if we've got to build housing, we want to have housing that's suitable for residents in this district, and that's going to be our abiding priorities going forward. I think the point in relation to resourcing is very well made. We already have great difficulties in recruiting planning officers at the moment. We're being loaded here with a whole load of additional, you've mentioned, Councillor Passingham, 7 applications. We've got major applications in Wellesbourne, I know in Southam, I know in most of the towns and large villages within the district. We've got hungry developers very, very keen to put forward proposals. For us to determine these applications, we will need additional resourcing, and finding qualified planning officers is not easy in this particular point in time, and I think government frankly needs to face up to that fact. They're putting a huge amount of pressure on here, and if we're not just going to be giving complete carte blanche to the development industry just to go ahead and do whatever they want to, we want to make sure it's plan-led, and obviously we need the staffing in relation to that. I think it was, frankly, quite wrong for the government to withdraw support for NDPs. We knew that frankly, when our new South Warwickshire local plan came forward, most of our major and indeed a number of smaller villages would want to revise or update their NDPs. These are matters I'm sure that this council will be considering in budget proposals coming forward in terms of how we might address that. But we have got to support our town and parishes, which are extremely important and are indeed in the front line. In terms of the advisory group, we haven't yet thought through terms of reference, how that's going to work, but what I'm very keen to ensure is that we don't delay and we are dynamic and addressing this. Time is not on our side, and it may be that we have got to move swiftly here and not necessarily with our usual processes, but obviously we need to be transparent as well in relation to that, so fully aware of how that might happen. But I think that is something that we'll be working on hopefully as soon as this recommendation is passed.
Mr Kevin, is there anything you particularly want to add to that one? And then I'll just bring in Councillor Passingham.
Thank you, Chair. So just in terms of prematurity, yeah, I mean, although we're progressing the South Warwickshire local plan very well, we still at still Regulation 18, so it's not yet been submitted. So I think at this stage where we are now, the fact that, as it says in the report, a site is being promoted or was coming in for an application in an area that may not feature or may not feature to that extent, that's not a reason for refusing it, because it doesn't, if you like, harm the strategy that's emerging. The prematurity is really if you've got let's say, example of you've got an allocation, for example, in a site almost sort of torpedoes that and prevents it from coming forward, that's when prematurity really becomes an issue. So I think at this early stage, yeah, prematurity is not really a valid issue. What we do need to make sure is that each site caters for its meets its infrastructure needs, and that infrastructure providers are aware of the potential cumulative impacts, and that's the key point that the discussions I want to be having with infrastructure colleagues and providers, to make sure that they're not just aware of the, if you like, the red line, but what's going on the next field along as well. And so we fully understand what the infrastructure implications are, and can make sure that when we're granting consents, we're doing so in the knowledge that the infrastructure can come forward to support it. And that's really the benefit of plan making, is you can do that more coordinated thinking much better. But we're in a tricky situation, but we're here, and we just need to move forward as quickly as we can.
And Councillor Passingham.
Yeah, so I take it from that cumulative effects can be taken into account in terms of its effects on infrastructure. I think that's particularly relevant to Shipston. I don't know what's his compared with other places, because there's all sorts of infrastructure issues at the moment, let alone almost doubling the size. So we're saying infrastructure can prejudice the outcome. If it affects the infrastructure and the lack of infrastructure, this can affect the or prejudice the outcome of plan making.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Potentially, and this is the thing with planning, you can never always say definitively. And the issue with much infrastructure provision in this country is that the providers have a legal responsibility to provide it. So I don't want residents to or to mislead residents. The likelihood is that the infrastructure will be provided, and that it would be in itself not a reason to refuse permission. But there could be that outcome where, if we've got clear evidence from an infrastructure provider that a development cannot be accommodated for whatever reason, then that could be a reason. But generally, because the infrastructure providers have to provide and support the housing, the infrastructure isn't normally a reason for refusal.
Okay, some of the details that we are now beginning to discuss will actually be things that the advisory group will consider. I don't really want to prolong the discussion too much unless anybody's got any particular new, I've heard Councillor Littlewood and Councillor Rock, I think you put your hand up first.
Just one brief point. I did mention sewage. I think as the head of development just said, if you take sewage, they are obliged to take the connection, but the timing they can influence, and we're talking about timing here. So if Severn Trent in particular, with whom I've been in a long debate, cannot provide the sewage connection within 5 years, we can't deliver the 5-year housing supply. So I think it's really quite important that we do try and open a debate with them as soon as possible. And we have talked about that, haven't we, John? So I think that is a real prime consideration for officers to work through.
Indeed. I'm working with all the various partners on all the areas where we need their help, and their partnership in order to be able to deliver is quite crucial. Councillor Littlewood.
Thank you, Leader. Just one final comment, and going back to Councillor Couch's comments with regard to NDP, which I thank him for. I would urge the urgency of this situation. If this was to go into next year's budget, March is too far away. Perhaps we need to start action now. And if that can be considered in some way as an exceptional budget item, then I think that would be very, very positive. Thank you.
It's something that we've already been having a discussion about, because I served on the NDP for Ulster Town Council, the last one, not the one that's currently being considered. I note the importance and how much the local knowledge, particularly my local knowledge on flooding, did go into that NDP, and I think that's quite crucial. Just one thing that has not been discussed today is that there actually are going to be further government changes, 3.3.4 and 3.3.5. Now, I don't want any discussion on it here and now, but I think we need to make sure that we are kept abreast of those changes, because part of those changes, once they come about, could have a particular impact on planning committees. So we do need to make sure that we are kept up to date on that information as it comes about. So that's part of the briefings for the future, because we do not want to find that some of the local control is weakened further. Okay, so given that we've had the discussion and it's a major item, so thank you very much for all your input onto this item. It is one of the biggest items we've had for a long, long time in the impact it could have on our district. Councillor Coucher, you are proposing the recommendations going forward. I'm happy to second those recommendations going forward. Are you all in favour of those recommendations, given the comments that have been made during the debate? Thank you very much indeed. Okay. And the next one is about the revocation of air quality management areas, page 111 to 130. And if you can turn to the relevant pages, it comes under Councillor Grocott as portfolio holder, and I see that the officers are present in the room as well. Councillor Grocott, would you like to outline what this paper and this report to the Cabinet is about?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'd like to say how pleased I am to see this paper come into Cabinet. And thank the officers for their hard work and expertise in bringing forward this report. It's very interesting to see. So this is for the revocation of the air quality management areas in the district, which is obviously the Studley and the Stratford-upon-Avon areas. And so we need to discuss this moving forward. I'd also like to pay tribute to the expertise and the diligence of the environmental officers in the district. I mean, because the quality of our air is very important to our residents and to visitors alike, and it's taken very seriously. And they work very hard to ensure that these factors are monitored continually for the benefit of everybody that comes to the district. And recently, the officers have been looking at places like car parks, I don't know where that came from, excuse me, to make sure that there was no harm to residents that had reported concerns, and their expertise was brought in to make sure that we were looking at that. So getting back to the point though, the proposal is to revoke the air quality management areas in Studley and Stratford-upon-Avon and approve the production of a district-wide air quality strategy. So I'm not going to read this report out line by line, you'll be relieved to know, but this comes from the Environmental Act 1995. We introduced the air quality monitoring management areas in the two areas in the district. Now, recently, as you can see in point 1.3, DEFRA's most recent technical guidance for the air quality management said that an AQMA should be considered following an annual mean nitrogen dioxide concentrations being lower than 36 micrograms per metre cubed for 3 consecutive years, so which is when at least 10% lower than the nitrogen dioxide objective. And if no AQMA should exist when the compliance to the relevant peer objective has been achieved for a consecutive 5-year period. So we can see from our evidence on page 113 for Studley, it's been under that for about getting on for 10 years. And for figure 2 on page 114, for around the Stratford AQMA area, it has been under that for getting on, for well over 10 years. So we are within the criteria for being able to revoke these trends. I mean, nationally, as you can see on figure 3, the concentration of nitrogen dioxide in the UK has been decreasing over a long period, and it has become much reduced, which is very beneficial, and I'm sure our green colleagues will agree, to the health and well-being of our population. So, and this is obviously due to more electric vehicles and other continued actions. Our officers have been working over the years to make sure that with the quality, the measuring equipment, that we have been under the relevant levels, and it has been reducing year on year. So moving forward, we're going to be going for an air quality strategy, and the difference between the management areas is it's not concentrated on any specific regions of concern. It is more of a policy framework, regulatory framework, and a task framework to make sure that over the whole district we are always moving in the right direction and moving to make sure that we reduce the air quality going forward. So I think back to the recommendations then, I'd like to move that the air quality, that the revocation of the Stratford-on-Avon and Studley air quality management areas by order under the Environment Act 1995, Part 4, in line with Department of Environment and Rural Affairs guidance, be approved, and that district-wide air quality strategy be produced and submitted for future approval. So thank you.
Councillor Rolfe and then Councillor Passingham.
Thank you. May I make a plea, if possible, to move the monitor from the bottom of the Tiddington Road to the bottom of the Shipston Road, and I'm going to give you a very solid reason why. The larger lorries are continually going down the Shipston Road, and because of traffic congestion and because of the nearness of the lorries to the houses, I mean, the gap is very, very narrow. I think there's an issue there with the idling engines of these large vehicles going over the bridge. I don't think it's needed on the bottom of the Tiddington Road. I think it's very, very important that we have it at the bottom of the Shipston Road. Now, I believe about 10 years ago we used to have one at the bottom of the Shipston Road. I don't know why it was moved, but I'd like to see it go back there and move from the Tiddington Road, because I think that's where the issue is, the bottom of the Shipston Road. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Passingham, and then if there's, I can come back to the officer then with both comments for any comments, any response. I thought bring in Councillor Passingham first, because then if there's two lots of questions, the same officer can respond to both.
Yes, yeah, thanks. It's very welcome that the nitrogen oxide levels have gone down so drastically. But we've not been testing particulates, and I think over the last 10 years it's become very apparent that particulates are very damaging, a lot more damaging than we used to think. So on the strategy going forward then, will particulates be monitored?
We've got two questions there that perhaps, would you like to introduce yourself and then address those two questions?
Hi, yeah, I'm Jackie Dicker, I'm the Environmental Protection Officer that produced this. And,
just have to speak into the microphone, look to the one side because they can't hear you.
Okay, sorry, I haven't done this many times. Okay, so in the first point from Councillor Rolfe, we did monitor at the top of Shipston Road previously, and the results were all compliant. But every year we do look and review the locations that we have our tubes, and we can put that one in for consideration again.
Just very, very quickly, it's the bottom of the Shipston Road near the bridge. It's where the lorries just stay. They stand still with their engines idling, waiting to go over the bridge.
Yeah.
Not the top of.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry, yeah. No, because we had them...
And perhaps you can just say that the district-wide air quality strategy, that will allow a wider range of decisions to be taken on where and how we are monitoring it. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, the monitoring so far has very much been focused on the 2 AQMAs, and we can look at introducing regular monitoring in tubes in different parts of the district if we feel it's justified, and we do review annually where they are, so we can always take suggestions and review them. In regards to particulates, yeah, a lot of the government and central government focus is now on particulates, and particularly the smaller, the PM2.5s, because of the harm to health that they've been shown to have. We don't, as a district, we're not required to monitor those because they're influenced on a much wider regional basis, and they're monitored by DEFRA and through the national monitoring framework. But our strategy will look in a number of measures that we will be looking to reduce particulates. The new objectives aren't just figures, like it's not to necessarily meet a certain level, it's to reduce the population exposure by 35%. So we'll be looking at a number of measures which we can do that in the strategy.
That is extremely useful. If you could kind of, in future, it might be useful to get more information about particulates and what kind of impact that has. But that's not for today, but it would be something that would be quite useful to have. Councillor Adams.
Yes, thank you. I welcome the opportunity for this to be a district-wide strategy. With that in mind, I just want to raise that we obviously have major projects going through the district in the form of HS2. This has inevitably had an impact on the air quality in the areas that it does go through as a result of the high turnover of large vehicles. So I'd just be intrigued if that can be factored into the strategy in the near term at the very least, because the construction is going to be ongoing. And notwithstanding that it's in a rural area, air quality in those areas are still very relevant. So I'd just like to raise that comment really and welcome the opportunity for that to be factored into the work going on.
I mean, one of the major ways that we already look at air quality is through the development control process, and we've got supplementary planning guidance on air quality, and it has to be considered at the outset in the design of planning applications over a certain size, and particularly those involving transport and infrastructure. So it will have been looked at, and it's something that will be looked at going forward for future developments as well. Thank
you very much for that. That's really useful. I do need a seconder for the recommendations, unless there's anybody. Councillor Coles, you're going to second that. And unless there's any more questions that need to be directed to the officers at all, then I'm happy to move that the recommendation has been proposed and seconded. Are you all in agreement? Agreed. Okay, all agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much for your time. And we're moving on now to the Fred Centre review, and this comes under Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this is being brought to Cabinet because it is to address the financial challenges which are being met by the Fred Winter Centre, and we are proposing a revised operating model. In order to accommodate this, we need to revise the terms of the 106 agreement and grant funding to enable Spring Housing Association to revise their operating model and secure the future of the service. I've been privileged to have been on the Town Council and also as trustee when this was originally proposed in the area, and I've been able to watch the development of it. But sitting here as a portfolio holder, I would like to make clear that this is a matter of financing, not revising to whom the service is available. the Fred Winter Centre is part of the Stratford housing pathway. Residents are housing is only eligible if the SDC has a duty to house them. The vast majority of the residents there will have a local connection. Very, very occasionally, there might be an exception in, for instance, in the case of somebody who is fleeing domestic abuse. But that is not usual. And I would also like to draw your attention to section 5.6, which perhaps expands slightly more on this pathway. Fred Winter is designed to meet households with higher levels of needs or complex needs. And it will sit alongside other developments such as Evesham Place, which provides supportive but not support-ed living environment for individuals who don't require 24/7. So we are endeavouring to ensure there is a flow. And the maintenance of the Fred Winter Centre is extremely important. They've done extremely good work for residents of the town, not only those who are their resident, but also to support people who are at risk of becoming homeless. And there's been interventions, and that has been prevented. So, just check my notes. Yes. So, basically, I would like to propose the recommendations. Do you want me to read? No. Basically, that I would endorse these recommendations and present them to Cabinet to be considered and accepted.
Before we have any, if there is any discussion, is there a seconder to that, Councillor Gist? Are you, Councillor Crump, are you wanting to raise anything?
Just briefly, there's one, thank you for the officers coming to scrutiny, particularly the Communities and Social Inclusion Manager. Very in-depth and detailed explanation. So that was fine. And in the addendum to the Cabinet papers, there's one slight change. It says, if residents gained employment, Spring had a sinking fund which could be used to contribute to the costs. It's probably, we've been explained, it's a support fund. Sinking funds have different connotations in housing as to us accountants who use it for a different reason. So just wanted that clarified, and I think I'm getting the nod from Hannah that's the right one. So
okay.
Thank you for that.
Is that as the Councillor Crump says, that okay, so that's accepted. Any questions that need to be raised on this one? I mean, one of the things I just would like to be able to, it would be useful to just, keep us updated as, because being able to provide, to make sure that homelessness is addressed in this district is it's quite a crucial part of that. So just keeping us updated on that one would be useful. I have a proposer. Any further questions? If not, I need a seconder. Councillor Gist is happy to second. Are you all in agreement? All in agreement, thank you. Okay, now moving on to the community grant, which we have to seek approval for this scheme, and that is on page 143 to 152. And are you happy for Councillor Coles to take that on and report on that one, please?
Yes. Thank you, Leader. Yes, again, this is to approve the scheme design, delivery timeframe and award scoring criteria for approval with regards to the £350,000 we put aside for community infrastructure. Again, I'd like to thank the officers for the work that they've done. It's been well consulted with partners around the district, and I think certainly I think we're all ready to get on and make it available and get people's applications in and get this money distributed as far as possible. And on the basis of that, I would like to recommend these two recommendations for the paper to go forward and be accepted today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on page 3.2, there's a table of application and delivery framework. This is something that is marking a particular 80th anniversary of VE and VJ days, because that was when a lot of these community facilities were originally funded, and some of them are now beginning to suffer from age and do need addressing. So are you proposing that? Do I have a seconder, Councillor Grocott? Any questions? If not, can we just move to approval of the recommendations? All in favour of approving. Thank you. And moving on to the Indigo Plus. And Councillor Coles, I believe this is you as well.
Sorry. Yes. Thank you, Leader. This report has come out of a review looking at the implementation of the U-Bus replacement service. This is one of the things we brought to the Council really quite early on, and we have been keeping an eye on it. We have had significant input from users and residents, and this has been taken note of, and conversations have been had with the providers of Indigo at Warwickshire County Council. It's a very useful and in-depth report, and certainly addresses some of the issues that some of my colleague councillors have raised with me. If you like, the service and routes and everything are booked through an app and an online service, and the parameters of that app are going to be adjusted in order to improve the number of residents who can access and go on a specific journey. And I was discussing this earlier, and of course, with an app and with algorithms and all the rest of it, the more you use them, the better they get. So that we're hoping once these changes go through and the app is used more and more people use it, it will learn, as computers are intended to from humans, and hopefully deliver results to address the concerns that we've had raised with us. I suggest I don't read out the recommendations again, but I would like to move that these 4 recommendations are accepted by Cabinet today. Thank you.
Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you. I'm always wary when people start using the word app, especially in terms of this service. A lot of my residents in Old Town and Saffron Meadow that use Indigo, they don't have apps. They have phones. They don't have smartphones. In fact, when I did a survey of them a few months ago, very few of them have phones at all. So I do think we ought to look at alternative ways of ensuring that some of our older generation who don't have this smartphone procedure can access Indigo quickly. Thank you.
And I think this was part of the outcome from the customer survey that was carried out. Councillor Coles, would you want to come back on that?
Yes, I would like to. Basically, anybody is able to ring up and speak to a member of the call centre who actually essentially are using the app on their behalf. So that's already in place. And I believe, yes, I've just found it, 85% of respondents booked solely via the booking centre. That essentially means we're putting a human between them and any app or smartphone, and that's more than acceptable and will continue to be the situation. So they shouldn't feel at all that they're at any disadvantage. They can just ring up and they will be using the same service. And again, that information will then go through and hopefully improve the response of the system. Thank you.
Basically, the report recommends the continued enhanced funding for the further 2 years, subject to dependent on performance. So that is part of the recommendation. Councillor Crump, did you want to come in?
A couple of things. I must admit I was disappointed Councillor Rolfe missed the opportunity to say some of her clients weren't happy using the app, but I was only probably me who would be it's a juvenile to use such a bad joke. But on a serious point of view, yeah, really good presentation. Yeah, we are supportive of the recommendation, but I think over in scrutiny could potentially work alongside the Cabinet to monitor performance, you know, more frequently on this. So yeah, just to make sure these improvements, which have been impressive, continue, or if they don't continue, then we can provide corrective action to make sure the changes are implemented as early as possible. Maybe even a bus group be set up and review the continuing feedback on a regular basis. and then that feedback from the quarterly reviews could be then passed on to the provider and the county council. So positive, helpful, constructive suggestions. We're not criticising anything. We want to supplement and be a critical friend on this, because we think, as we said in our report, this is a service we do need to support for our most vulnerable, some of our most vulnerable members of our community. So thumbs up all the way, and we are trying to be supportive as possible.
Thank you. And Councillor Coles?
Thank you for that. I mean, certainly think we felt as an administration coming in, it was definitely a service that we would try to keep going and not stop. And essentially the work we're doing now is to future-proof and keep this service going until eventually the inevitable LGR, and then we will have something in place and proven that hopefully will be taken up by the new body. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Say that this is subject to looking at the performance, etc., obviously, but we are supportive. You are proposing that, and I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Gist, are you all in favour of those recommendations? Thank you very much indeed. We're now moving on to the Community Facilities Upper Lighthorn. Pages 175 to 272, and I've been notified that Councillor Rock would also like to raise a comment or question on this because he has been involved. Do you want to come and start that with your question right at the beginning, and then we can bring the portfolio holder in. Perhaps with the portfolio holder outline it first, then Councillor Rock come in with his comment, and then Councillor Adams can answer any queries that have been raised by Councillor Rock.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, so in January 24, the Cabinet agreed that they were going to have an update at the end of REBA Stage 2 for this project. Now, unfortunately, due to delays outside of the control of the project, we've not been able to commence the procurement for a construction partner as of yet, but the obligation was still there to bring back an update at this stage in the project. So at this juncture, it's a report just for noting, but with further updates to be brought back as things progress over the course of the project.
Councillor Rock, do you want to come in and with your information that's relative to it? And again, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to comment on the Upper Lighthorn health facilities. I'm the Vice Chair of the GP St Wolfston Patient and Staff Panel. First of all, I would like to make a personal declaration that I had no participation in the selection of that practice to run the Upper Lighthorn GP facility. My interests do now run to canvassing for the best outcome for potential patients over the wider area to be serviced, including those residents from Bishop's Islington and Fenny Compton in my ward. Whilst making a general welcome of progress, can I bring to the attention of the Cabinet and portfolio holders 2 points, please? The comments of the GP practice on page 45 regarding layout seem to have been noted without comment to see whether these will be acted upon. Will they? Secondly, the reports appear silent on the vexed question of temporary provision and the impact of timing to ensure that growth in population is properly assimilated on locally and not continue to be distributed around other GP practices in the area. Does dealing with the timing problem and temporary provisions have the full attention of all the authorities involved?
Well within your 3 minutes. Thank you very much indeed for that. Yes, I don't know whether the officer would like to come in first and then Councillor Adams come to wind up afterwards. Tony Perks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rock, and thank you for providing a question in advance. It makes it much easier to answer them. In answer to the first question, yes, the points that the GP practice have raised will be incorporated as we move into REBA Stage 3. I think if you look on page 46 of the report, one of their sort of items about the best place for the reception waiting room has already been taken forward, so we're working with them, and they're very much part of our plans going forward. In terms of the temporary GP provision, I met with Homes England and various members of the Lighthorn community last week, and I'm pleased to report that Homes England are looking to sort of bring forward their development, including the retail units, one of which will house the temporary GP facility. They will come forward as part of the housing development they're hoping to commence soon, and we would hope to be in there by the end of next year. We reported that back to the Lighthorn group as part of that meeting. The ICB were also been updated with that, so hopefully we should be able to bring forward the temporary GP facility in advance of this facility. And just to sort of flesh out some of what Councillor Adams sort of told you, we're currently waiting for the final allocation of the site so that we can sort of progress with the detailed design of this once we're absolutely confident where it's going. We didn't want to make any more investment in design that may be at risk, but similarly we don't want to hold the project forward, so we're keen to take it forward as quickly as possible. And we're currently pursuing the land transfer with the developers, so we're working on that at the moment.
Councillor Adam.
Thank you. I haven't got anything material to add over the officer's comments. So yes, and as I said, any further progress will be brought back for review at the appropriate time.
Yeah, and thank you very much for Councillor Rock for bringing those up. That is always very useful to raise those kind of questions.
Can I thank the officers and the portfolio for the answer?
So, Councillor Adam, you are proposing the recommendation?
Yes, I propose the recommendation for it to be noted.
Councillor Grocott is seconding it. Are you all in favour of the comments and recommendations that have been made? Thank you. Moving on to issues arising from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Crump.
Yeah, just one, Councillor Junid. You may remember at both the Cabinet and Overview and Scrutiny Committee, when the Task and Finish group was set up for the privately managed public open space flood alleviation schemes and state roads, I did question whether the timescale for this was quite tight, and suggested an interim report in the 3 months and then a fuller report. This was slightly dismissed because they felt it could be achieved. But on Wednesday's meeting, the chair of that Task and Finish group felt that because of the scale of work, officer workload and things that were coming up, he would likely to be requesting that full council next week, potentially, I'm not sure how it will go on there, but I think the chair of the council was supportive of it, when you Councillor Rolfe, that a request be made that an interim report be given within 3 months' timescale, and a further report come in the new year. So, Psychic Crump here was actually quite right on this. I'm not, I think because of the size of the project and the complexity and things that were discovered when officers dug into them, that's the main reason. And I've also potentially got concerns about officers' resources, whether any of those officers, from a planning point of view, would be needed to support the members' advisory group on the 5-year housing land supply. So concerned about workloads and also, making sure we do a good job and produce an interim report that covers the main things and a fuller report that addresses the issues. So more haste, less speed on this one, and I think it would be fair that the council accepts this request, that it's done in a reasonable and pragmatic way.
Thank you very much indeed. And there's no other issues from Overview and Scrutiny. I haven't had any information, there's no business from any of the Cabinet committees. Party is on block items, and it's approved on block unless a request has been made to myself at the start of the meeting for the item to be discussed. I've had none. The only thing that I would like to say is on the climate change panel, I have met the person that I undertook to meet. So that's just for information that I have met the person that I undertook to meet. And Councillor Rolfe, is there any other...
Yeah, I just wanted to mention just on the issues arising and the management companies.
We have actually moved on to the
I
envelope.
just wanted to go back and if it was possible for us as a group to thank Alison Willers. I think she's been amazing. I've done a lot of work with her. She's working incredibly hard on all of these S106 issues, and I would like personally to thank her for all the work. She's been brilliant with the residents that I've met with her, and long may that hard work last. Thank you.
Thanks and praise for somebody who's doing a good job is always welcomed. So I have had no items for discussion on the en bloc items or Part F, and there's no urgent business that I've been notified about. So thank you very much for attending today, and I declare the meeting finished. Thank you very much for your time.